Hey everyone! Today, I'm excited to share an extraordinary tale about Emma Emberlin, a teacher who experienced a life-changing near-death encounter that opened her eyes to a perspective on God that's quite different from traditional beliefs. This is going to be quite the ride, filled with unexpected turns. But before we dive in, I'd love for you to share where you're tuning in from. Just drop your city in the comments. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this one. Let me introduce myself. I'm Emma Emberlin, and I've been teaching at an elementary school in Silverbrook, Oregon. The events I'm about to recount took place over 30 years ago, but believe me, the memories are still crystal clear in my mind. Now, from the start, I've always considered myself pretty grounded. I wasn't the type to believe in things unless I could see them. My life was rather typical. I taught, spent time with friends, and managed my home, nothing too unusual. My family wasn't deeply religious. We sporadically went to church more out of habit than faith. As I matured, my skepticism grew. I truly believed that science could unravel all mysteries, and anything outside of that realm was simply fanciful thinking. I recall a spirited debate during college about whether God exists. I passionately argued that the concept was merely a human creation, a crutch for those who struggled with reality. Ironically, I had no idea that a few years down the line, my entire perspective would be turned upside down. At that time, I was married to Daniel, a genuinely wonderful guy whose faith was rock solid. He often encouraged me to explore spirituality, but I dismissed his views, thinking he was just naive for believing in things he couldn't prove. Life continued in its usual rhythm until one day, I noticed a lump on the right side of my neck. At first, I brushed it off, but over time, it grew larger. Being a teacher means you have to exude confidence in front of kids, and that lump was starting to chip away at my self-esteem. I decided to see Dr. Robert Haynes. He reassured me that surgery wasn't necessary, but I insisted on getting it removed. I just wanted it gone. The thought of developing a goiter was daunting, not just for my health, but also for my pride. After some back and forth, he finally agreed to set up the procedure. Little did I know what was about to unfold. The day of the operation was here, and if I'm honest, I was a bundle of nerves, but there was also a sense of resolve. As I lay on the surgical table, peering up at those glaring bright lights, I felt the anesthesia starting to weave its magic. Dr. Haynes was by my side, offering calm reassurance that everything would be all right. I closed my eyes, ready to drift off, believing I'd wake up a few hours later, bandaged and free from the burden of that stubborn goiter. But oh boy, nothing could have prepared me for what unfolded next. Suddenly, it was as though an unseen force was yanking me away from my body, dragging me through an endless, dark tunnel. I can't even begin to describe that sensation. It was like being thrust into a black hole, zooming at the speed of light. Panic took over. Every instinct screamed for me to cry out, yet there wasn't a sound to escape my lips. I longed to grasp onto something solid, but everything around me was just a swirling blur. It felt like I was plummeting into an abyss, and time? Forget about it. I had no idea whether seconds or hours were passing. Just as suddenly as it began, the plunge halted, and I found myself embraced by a warm, vibrant light, something unlike anything I had ever felt before. It was as if the air itself shimmered with this gentle radiance, not blinding at all, but truly welcoming. Gradually, my eyes adjusted, revealing details of my surroundings. Ahead of me stood a slender bridge adorned with shimmering golden railings. Below, a brook flowed with crystal-clear water, the kind that seemed almost otherworldly, while its gentle melody created a harmony of peace that enveloped me like a comforting blanket. Curiosity stirred within me, and I stepped closer to the bridge. That's when I noticed I wasn't alone. On the other side awaited a figure, radiating its own ethereal glow. As I approached, the figure materialized into an angelic presence, breathtakingly beautiful. She had long, golden hair that floated around her, and her massive wings were soft, translucent, almost as if crafted from the light enveloping us. The angel smiled warmly, and even without uttering a single word, I somehow knew her name, Lumiel. Beside her were several boys dressed in immaculate white shirts, their eyes sparkling with an infectious joy that instantly connected with me. It felt as if I had known them forever. and in that moment I realized that something extraordinary was unfolding. As I stood amidst the vibrant energy of Silverbrook, Oregon, everything I had ever believed about life began to unravel. My doubts and skepticism, they faded into the background, feeling irrelevant compared to what was unfolding before me. I was enveloped by a presence, something that transformed my entire outlook on existence and the idea of divinity. Being in the company of Emma Emberlin and the children brought about an unexpected shift. Out of nowhere, a powerful force surrounded me, as if the universe itself was revealing profound secrets. In that very moment, I felt the most intense clarity. An overwhelming feeling rushed over me, illuminating my understanding of God and reality. What I encountered wasn't a traditional deity or a booming voice from above. Instead, it was a pure, boundless energy that seemed to connect everything and everyone. Suddenly, I grasped the entirety of existence in a single flash. The love radiating from this force was beyond anything I could have imagined, wrapping me like a warm embrace, almost as if every particle of my being was saturated with unconditional compassion and understanding. In that fleeting moment, all the religious teachings I had ever encountered, all the scriptures and philosophies, began to feel limited and insignificant. I came to the realization that no earthly faith or doctrine could fully convey the essence of the divine. This revelation shook my previously held beliefs to their core, confronting my pride in skepticism and logic head-on. This experience was like being granted sight beyond the veil of our physical world, revealing the fundamental truth of existence. I began to comprehend that God isn't a detached figure on a celestial throne, passing judgment. Instead, I discovered an all-encompassing force, a universal consciousness that weaves through every particle, every living being, every thought, and every emotion. What truly amazed me was the realization that I was a part of this grand consciousness. There was no divide between myself and this divine essence. Everything was interconnected, and for the first time, the separation I had always felt seemed to dissolve, leaving only unity in its wake. As I drifted into this profound state, a deep sense of connection enveloped me. It was remarkable, like I could feel every living thing, every twinkling star in the sky, and this overwhelming sense of unity was both stunning and immensely comforting. In that moment, my mind opened up in a new way. I realized that physical death wasn't the end. Instead, it felt more like a continuation, a seamless transition of energy and consciousness, always advancing and growing. The notion of death that had once appeared so final now transformed into something far different, a mere change of state. In this enlightening experience, I grasped that life's purpose was much richer than I had ever envisioned. It wasn't solely about being born, living, and eventually passing away. It encompassed a journey of spiritual evolution, a way to expand our consciousness while playing a role in the overall progression of the universe. Every thought, every choice, every little action rippled out, affecting the entire tapestry of existence. Amidst this realization, I discovered that love reigns supreme as the most potent force across the cosmos. It wasn't just the familiar feelings for friends or family, but something deeper, an unconditional love that connects everything and everyone. This universal love is what binds the universe together, fueling its growth and evolution. As that intense experience began to fade, I felt different, transformed in ways I could hardly explain. I knew that I would look at the world through entirely new eyes, with my beliefs and values reshaped. Even though finding the words to convey what I'd experienced would be a challenge, there was a pressing urge within me to share this wisdom with others. Just as I was trying to sort through the enormity of it all, an unexpected jolt pulled me back. It felt like I was being yanked away, almost like plunging into a dark, swirling tunnel again. But this time it felt as though I was being ripped from a paradise I had just discovered. The sensation was unlike anything, falling from an infinite height. Yet instead of fear, a profound sense of loss washed over me. I wanted to plead, to cry out to remain in that tranquil place just a little longer, but my voice didn't reach beyond the silence. In an instant, I floated above the operating room, a bizarre and dreamlike sight. It felt surreal to observe my own body lying on the operating table below. The surgical team, led by Dr. Haynes, appeared frazzled and rushed, their movements frantic. I watched in a strange state of detachment as they worked feverishly to stabilize me. Beeping monitors filled the room, and the atmosphere grew charged with urgency as I heard someone shout, "We're losing her!" It was surreal, really. I found myself in a situation where I felt more vibrant than ever, yet there I was, my own body lying there, lifeless and pale. Suddenly, I was jolted by a sound that shook me to my core. To my astonishment, it was my own screams, not from the body that remained unresponsive, but from a deeper part of myself, like a voice rising from my soul. It was a chilling protest, each note brimming with anguish, as if I was being forcibly yanked back into a world I was reluctant to re-enter. In the chaos, the nurses swiftly moved me to the infirmary, and there I continued to scream, though it felt like my cries went unheard. It was as if my very essence was caught in a battle, trying to comprehend its rightful place, swinging between two realms of existence. Gradually, I sensed a tug pulling me back into my physical form. It was disorienting, much like squeezing into a snug outfit after reveling in the freedom of soaring through the skies. When my eyes finally fluttered open in the infirmary, a wave of conflicting feelings crashed over me. Part of me was bursting with joy, as if every atom in my body was rejoicing just to be alive. Yet, another part of me was drenched in nostalgia, longing for the extraordinary experience I had just lived through. It was a yearning that resonated deep within me. The nurses flitted around, looking relieved but puzzled by my emotional whirlwind. I found myself smiling and crying all at once, completely at a loss for how to articulate the tempest of feelings engulfing me. Right then, the phone beside my bed rang, jolting me from my thoughts. The nurse picked it up, and after a quick chat, turned to me with a look of surprise. "It's your mom. She wants to speak with you," she said. Still reeling from everything, I took the phone. My mother's voice came through, grounding me back to reality so suddenly. "I'm fine, Mom," I replied, though fine felt absurdly inadequate to capture my emotional state. As I reassured her that everything was okay, my mind wandered off. How could I even begin to explain what had happened? How could I describe an experience that seemed to leap beyond all bounds of logic? In that moment, I realized I faced a daunting challenge far beyond just recovering from surgery. I needed to find a way to weave this extraordinary experience into the fabric of my daily life. While I was lost in contemplation about all that had transpired, an old memory resurfaced, emerging from the depths of my mind, as if my recent brush with death had cracked open a door to forgotten moments, unlocking a flood of extraordinary memories that I never thought would see the light of day again. Lying in the hospital bed, a vivid memory from my backpacking days in Asia surged back to me, one dating all the way to the 1970s. I remembered a chaotic scene in a bustling city, I can't even recall its name now, where I was trying to squeeze onto a packed bus. People were jostling for space, shouting loudly in a language that felt completely foreign to me. In the middle of this frenzy, something unexpected pierced through the noise. It was my mother's voice, clear and urgent, as if she were standing right beside me. "Emma!" she called, the same way she used to when I was about to make a careless decision as a child. Instinctively, I wrapped my arms around my backpack, clutching it tightly to my chest. Just then, I felt a sudden shove. A man rushed past, his hand barely brushing the exact spot where my belongings had been just seconds earlier. At the time, I didn't think twice about it. I was too focused on boarding the bus and reaching my destination. But now, as I lay here recuperating, that moment replayed in my mind with alarming clarity. How could my mother possibly have sensed the danger from so far away, thousands of miles apart? Could it be that she possessed some sort of psychic insight that I had never noticed or accepted? That thought opened a floodgate of memories, each one reflecting on how she always seemed to know things she shouldn't. I used to chalk those moments up to mere coincidence or my imagination, but now I couldn't help but reassess them in light of my recent near-death experience. Could there be a deeper connection between us, something spiritual that transcends the physical distance? These musings weighed heavily on my mind. On one hand, the curiosity to speak with my mother was overwhelming. I longed to ask her if she remembered that day and if she had any awareness of what had happened. Yet on the other hand, I feared she might think I was losing my grip on reality. After all, just a few days ago, I would have brushed off these ideas as nonsense. In the midst of my thoughts, a nurse stepped into the room, bringing me back to the present. She began checking my vitals and asked if I needed anything for pain relief. My responses were automatic, my mind still entangled in that distant, chaotic memory. And it hit me. I was caught in a dilemma. My brush with death had opened my eyes to endless possibilities, realities I'd always denied. But how was I supposed to make sense of all of this? As I lay in the hospital bed, feeling the gentle adjustments of the nurse fixing my pillow, a flood of thoughts consumed me. Once I got out of here, the first thing on my agenda would be a serious heart-to-heart with my mom. So many questions lingered in my mind, mysteries waiting to be unraveled. Maybe she could help me make sense of what I had been through and this strange bond that felt stronger than ever between us. Throughout the day, my emotions swung wildly. One moment I was thrilled about the insights I was gaining, and the next, anxiety crept in. What else was out there waiting for me to discover? About myself, my family, or even the wider world now that I had seen through a different lens. When I was finally discharged, I secretly wished everything would snap back to normal. I wanted to just pick up my life where I left off. But deep down, I knew nothing would ever be the same. The surgery experience had changed something profound in me, a reality I couldn't simply shake off. Instead of embracing this newfound perspective, I made a choice that I now look back on as a significant misstep. I buried it all deeper, clinging to a more staunchly skeptical mindset than ever before. It was as if I was trying to counteract my experience, reinforcing my rationality with an almost obsessive fervor. Every day was a blur of running, teaching, grading papers, and planning lessons, drowning myself in routine. I figured that if I kept busy, I could outrun the memories and the questions that threatened to surface. Daniel, my husband, tried gently to nudge me toward exploring spirituality. He had always held a belief in life after death, and my experiences seemed like proof to him. But every time he broached the topic, I did my best to sidestep it. I'd change the subject or make an excuse to leave the room. Facing it head on? No thanks. I recall one night when Daniel found me in tears in the bathroom. He wrapped his arms around me, genuinely worried, and asked what was bothering me. I longed to share the burden I carried, to let him in, but the words stuck in my throat. How could I explain something so baffling to myself? How could I articulate an experience that shattered everything I thought I knew? So I told him I was just overwhelmed with work stress. He didn't buy it, of course, but he respected my need for silence. That was typical of him, patient and kind, even when I felt undeserving. As the years trudged on, I turned into a shadow of my former self. At teacher meetings, people referred to me as the most rational one, the voice of reason. In the quaint town of Silverbrook, Oregon, I spent many years upholding a skeptical view of the world. Conversations about the supernatural or any spiritual revelations, those were things I outright dismissed, almost with a sense of ridicule. I thought that by ignoring the existence of such phenomena, I could somehow suppress my own past experiences. But deep down, a part of me was always at odds with itself. When the night settled in and the world outside grew silent, those memories resurfaced, uninvited and relentless. I could still feel the tranquility that washed over me during my encounter with Lumiel, that angelic presence. Just glimpsing that moment reminded me of something much larger than anything I could comprehend. No matter how hard I tried to stash those memories away, they lingered, shadowing my thoughts. As time went on, nightmares began to invade my dreams. I often found myself plummeting into a dark abyss or trapped in a suffocating place, shouting for help to no avail. Awakening from these terrors, drenched in a cold sweat, I would feel my pulse racing. Daniel was always there, offering comfort, but how could I share what truly haunted me? I had locked away the details of my near-death experience, hoping they would fade into oblivion. Unfortunately, it felt more like a specter, quietly haunting me during the most unexpected moments. Now, reflecting back, I see how much time I squandered denying such a critical aspect of my existence. I can't help but wonder how many potential moments of insight I overlooked, driven by my fear of the unknown. Yet there's a lesson in this. Some truths are stubborn. They will rise to the surface, no matter how hard you try to bury them. It has been quite a journey, 35 years since that pivotal moment in my life. I became a master at dodging topics related to spirituality, steering conversations far away from anything remotely ethereal. Little did I know that destiny, or perhaps some greater force, had its own plan for me. One mundane Sunday afternoon stood out vividly in my memory. Daniel was glued to the television while I sat nearby, sifting through my students' assignments. Suddenly, I heard his enthusiastic voice call out to me, "Emma, check this out." Though I initially hesitated, feeling the tug of my work, I shuffled over to the couch beside him. On the screen was Elizabeth Votto, a woman of average age, recounting her near-death experience. At first, I intended to make a quick exit, mumbling some excuse to return to my tasks. But as she spoke, something captivated me. Her descriptions, those vivid sensations, the brilliant light, the profound peace, the celestial encounters, they resonated with my own story as if she were echoing my unspoken truths. I could feel my heart pounding. As I sat there, my hands began to tremble uncontrollably. It felt like something I had kept tightly sealed for years was suddenly bursting open. Memories I had buried deep down started rushing back, clear and daunting. Daniel must have seen the panic in my eyes because he gently squeezed my hand and asked, "Are you all right?" Words failed me. All I could do was let the tears roll down my cheeks without even trying to hold them back. After our conversation wrapped up, there was this heavy silence that hung between us for what felt like ages. Daniel didn't utter a word. He simply pulled me into a comforting embrace as I wept. This wasn't just any cry. It was a release, a moment of recognition and liberation. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't alone in my experience. In the months that followed, I dove wholeheartedly into exploring spirituality and the concept of the afterlife. I read extensively, consumed documentaries, and even joined online forums. Each new discovery seemed to affirm what I had gone through. I found myself revisiting my near-death experience through a different lens. This time, I didn't view it with fear or denial. Instead, I started to grasp its significance, not just for me, but also for others who might be facing similar situations. I remember one particular night when I stayed up late, engrossed in a book about near-death encounters. When Daniel woke up, he found me in tears again, but this time, they were tears of happiness. "I get it now," I shared with him, my voice trembling with emotion. "I finally understand what happened to me." This moment marked a profound shift. Everything, the way I viewed the world, my values, my beliefs, was under a microscope, evaluated in light of this newfound insight. It felt like I was waking from a deep, lengthy slumber, seeing everything around me with refreshed awareness. I even began meditating regularly, something I would have rolled my eyes at in the past. Through meditation, I touched on that serene feeling I had experienced during my near-death encounter. It wasn't identical, but it served as a gentle reminder that there is more to existence than the tangible. My bond with Daniel evolved too. I finally felt brave enough to open my heart, to expose thoughts and feelings I had kept buried for so long. His acceptance and unwavering support were crucial during my journey of self-discovery. As I embraced this renewed view of life and death, I felt lighter, as if a great burden was lifting away. The long-held denial evaporated, replaced by a sense of liberty and purpose that was completely new to me. With this fresh perspective, I recognized the need to reconcile my past with my present. I realized it was time to take that step. It was finally time for that long overdue chat with my mom about something that had been on my mind for ages. So, on a bright Saturday afternoon, I found myself sitting in her garden, the sun shining down as I gathered my thoughts. "Hey Mom," I started, a bit unsure about how to dive in. "Do you recall that trip I took to Asia back in the 70s? She looked at me with a raised eyebrow, clearly intrigued. Taking a breath, I pressed on. "There was this moment when I heard you calling out to me, warning me about something dangerous. Do you remember that?" To my astonishment, my mom's face lit up with recognition. A gentle smile spread across her lips as she squeezed my hand. "Oh, Emma, my dear, I've always felt there was something unique between us. That day, I had the most vivid dream. I could see you in peril and was shouting your name. When I woke up, I felt certain that you were in trouble." Honestly, I was taken aback. After all those years of pushing aside weird experiences and questioning everything, here was my mom, openly embracing this strange bond we shared. We ended up chatting for hours, unearthing secrets we had both kept buried, afraid no one would understand. That conversation shifted something in me. I realized I had spent much of my life dismissing a vital part of who I am. I started to see that there are mysteries in life that science hasn't figured out yet, and that's okay. It didn't lessen the importance of scientific inquiry, it just added another layer to it. Feeling inspired, I decided to bring more openness into my work. I began weaving in discussions about various spiritual beliefs in my social studies classes. The reaction from my students was beyond what I expected. They were eager to share their own stories and beliefs. Then one day, after class, a student approached me. I'll never forget the tears in her eyes as she recounted a near-drowning incident, describing how she encountered a brilliant light and felt a profound peace wash over her. "I've never told anyone this," she admitted. "I was scared they'd think I was out of my mind." In that moment, I realized the real purpose behind my experiences. It wasn't just about my journey, it was about creating a welcoming space for others to explore their own extraordinary moments. As I opened up, I discovered that many people around me had similar tales to share. Neighbors, co-workers, even folks from the local grocery store all had their own inexplicable experiences they'd kept silent. So, I started hosting small gatherings at my home, where everyone could share their stories freely, without any judgment. My understanding partner, Daniel, always supported this new venture. One evening, while I was reflecting on the profound changes in my life, my husband wrapped his arms around me and proclaimed, "You've finally found peace within." And you know what? He was absolutely right. For the first time in years, no, decades, I felt whole. The constant battle in my mind between logic and the strange experiences I had endured finally ended. I discovered a way to welcome both sides of myself, recognizing that they weren't opposed, but rather, they complemented one another. When I think back to the rigid, skeptical teacher I once was, I can't help but feel a blend of compassion and gratitude. Compassion for the fears and denials that had me locked away for so long, and gratitude for the winding journey that led me to this present moment. At 58, I've never felt more alive or more connected to the world around me. That near-death experience, once a source of confusion and dread, has transitioned into a cherished chapter of my life. It opened my eyes to the universe's vastness and taught me about the intricate tapestry of connections that bind us all. It reminded me to keep my heart and mind open to whatever comes my way. This inner shift didn't just impact my personal life, it spilled into every corner of my existence, including my work as a teacher. I realized I had an incredible opportunity to share my journey, enriching my students' educational experience. I started weaving conversations about spirituality, philosophy, and consciousness into my lessons, always ensuring to approach topics with respect and openness. It wasn't about pushing my beliefs on anyone. Instead, it was about fostering an environment for dialogue and thoughtful reflection. To my surprise, the students responded beautifully. Many of them, who once seemed indifferent, began to engage eagerly in discussions. Then one day, I had an idea for a special project. I encouraged the students to interview individuals from various cultural and religious backgrounds, exploring their ideas about the afterlife. The outcomes were unexpectedly rich. Not only did they gather intriguing insights, but they also returned with a deeper appreciation for the rich diversity of thought that exists in our world. It seemed my efforts didn't go unnoticed. The school principal reached out to me. I expected to be called in for a reprimand, but instead, she expressed her excitement. "Emma, parents are saying their children seem more engaged and reflective. Whatever you're doing, just keep it up." At home, my relationship with Daniel underwent a beautiful transformation. Our conversations evolved into something more profound and meaningful. We even began a daily meditation practice together, which brought us even closer. I still remember him saying once, "It feels like I've gone through quite a journey since the first time I said I do to you, and then to the new version of you. It's funny how I can genuinely love both versions equally." My bond with my mom really took off during this time too. We started exploring our unique connection. It turns out we sometimes felt each other's emotions even from a distance. At first, that idea freaked me out, but now I find it pretty fascinating. It hasn't all been sunshine and rainbows, though. Some old friends drifted away, feeling uncomfortable with my new outlook on life. That was hard to accept, but I realized it was just part of evolving. On the flip side, I found new friends who share my interests and encourage me to expand my worldview even more. I also started giving talks to local groups about my near-death experience. Can you believe I was nervous at first? I was worried about the skepticism I used to have, but the reaction was incredible. People often approached me afterward with tears, expressing gratitude for voicing feelings they hadn't shared. One of the most unforgettable moments was when I got invited to speak at a medical conference. I was amazed to see so many healthcare professionals eager to listen and learn. A neurosurgeon even came up to me and said that my story challenged everything he believed about consciousness. As I gained some recognition, I got invitations to participate in scientific studies on near-death experiences, which I jumped at. It felt good to contribute to a conversation that intertwines science and spirituality. Throughout this journey, I've tried to keep a balanced approach. I never wanted to become a guru or claim to have all the answers. I stayed critical and rational while being open to the mysteries that life throws at us. Looking back, that near-death experience truly changed my life. I evolved from a skeptical teacher to someone who embraces life's mysteries. I strive to learn and grow every day, appreciating how each moment holds incredible potential. Now, as I sit in my cozy home office, surrounded by books, letters from students, and memories of a fulfilling life, I can't help but reflect on this amazing journey. It's hard to wrap my head around how much time has flown since that pivotal moment in the operating room. You know, that day turned my entire perception upside down. It made me realize that life is far more intricate and mysterious than I had ever thought. That feeling of connection to something greater wasn't just a figment of my imagination or a side effect of medication. It was undeniably real, as solid and tangible as the ground I stand on. This experience shifted my entire understanding of what existence entails. I came to see that death isn't the end of everything. It's more like a transformation, a transition into another form of being. Sure, I still feel that gnawing fear about death like anyone else, but it no longer grips me like it used to. Instead, that fear pushes me to embrace life, to soak in every single moment as it comes. Another gem I took away from my journey was the value of keeping an open mind. For a long time, I let my skepticism cloud my vision, preventing me from truly experiencing the beauty around me. Now, I get that it's crucial to find that sweet spot between skeptical thinking and being open to the mysteries of life. Science and spirituality, believe it or not, they don't have to clash. They can coexist, both aimed at uncovering the truth. Oh, and let's not forget about love and compassion. The overwhelming sense of love I felt during my near-death experience wasn't just a cosmic experience for some distant afterlife. It's something we can bring into our everyday lives. I do my best to carry that love into my interactions, whether I'm with my students, my family, or even the random people I meet on the street. It's remarkable how even a small act of kindness can ripple out and create a wave of positivity in the world. This experience has deeply underscored the idea that everything is connected. We're not solitary figures, rather we're all part of a vast web of relationships and energies. Every thought, every action, it all impacts the collective. This awareness has made me much more conscious of my choices and how I approach life. And there's something else about consciousness that really struck me. My near-death experience revealed that consciousness is way more expansive and complicated than the physical brain can contain. That realization opened up a realm of possibilities and made me question much of what I thought I understood about how the mind works. Finally, I learned how important it is to share our stories. For a long time, I kept my experience bottled up, worried about what others would think. But once I started opening up, I found out that there are many folks out there with similar tales to tell. Creating safe spaces for these conversations is so vital. Reflecting on my life, I realize how essential these dialogues have become to my personal mission. It hasn't always been a smooth journey, though. I faced moments filled with uncertainty and fear, and I often found myself questioning everything around me. But you know what? Each obstacle helped me grow, and taught me more about who I am and the world I inhabit. Now, at the age of 58, I feel a sense of vitality and connection I've never experienced before. My near-death episode? It's not just a traumatic event in my past. To me, it's a profound gift that redirected my life in a significant way. It's allowed me to assist others in discovering meaning within their own trials. If you're someone who's encountered similar challenges, let me reassure you, you're not alone. Your journey matters deeply. Don't shy away from delving into your experiences. Question them, share them, and embrace them fully. For those who haven't faced anything like this, I encourage you to maintain an open mind. The universe holds so many wonders and mysteries that science has yet to uncover. Isn't that thrilling? As I wrap up these thoughts, I'm filled with gratitude for the lessons life has imparted, for each person I've met along the way, and for the chance to share my journey. I hope my story offers comfort, inspiration, or even just a fresh perspective. Life is a wondrous adventure, brimming with the unknown. Dive into it wholeheartedly, keep your heart open, and never cease to question. Keep learning and evolving, because in the end, that's what truly matters.